Hello, beautiful warriors. It is me, Caitlin Parker, and welcome back to this episode of Inside the Mind of a PAH Warrior. In today's podcast, I am going to be talking about the experience of having to move back in with my parents. I am going to be open and honest about my feelings and what I went through during that process. It all began around November of 2022. It was getting harder and harder to be able to do everyday things by myself. And at this point, I knew I needed something in my life to change. I did not want to move back in with my parents because this means I would lose my independence and feel judged by others. At this point, my parents were coming over probably twice a week to help me clean, take out the trash, and fill Bentley's water bowl, etc. They would help with bringing in my groceries too. It was also becoming clear that I was losing my ability to do everyday tasks like a normal person. It would take everything in me just to be able to take my dog out to the bathroom or heat up one of my meals in the microwave. As it was getting harder and harder to do these activities, I knew that I needed extra help. I still wasn't open to the idea of having to move back in with my parents, but I knew I couldn't keep going on like this for much longer. My parents and I went out to dinner, and while we were waiting for food, I had expressed how my ability to do everyday things was getting harder and harder. At this point, they knew that because they could see the things were getting harder, and my mom said, "Well, you can always move back in with us. We'd really love that." And I said, "I know, but I don't really want to move back in with you." And then I said, "Do you think maybe I could get like a CNA person or hire someone to help me with things around my apartment?" And my mom said CNAs are really only for people who need medical help throughout the day, and your dad and I can help you with things around your apartment. And then that was basically the end of that conversation. I now knew that a CNA wouldn't be possible for me to get because I don't need any medical help. I just needed basic help. So that part was easy for me to get over. But the other part was not. I truly, really needed help and was neglecting things around my apartment because I physically did not have the energy or the capability to do it. I needed help, but I didn't want help from my parents, and not because I thought they wouldn't help me. I just didn't want to ask them, because as an adult, you're supposed to help and take care of your parents, not the other way around. And I felt pathetic and worthless that I needed my parents to help me. I would rather pay a stranger to help me out than ask my parents. But the thing is, there really isn't a professional job company out there that does that. And I don't know where to begin with looking for someone like that, and I don't really have the resources or a place to ask those types of questions, or really even the money to pay for it. I spent weeks talking about this with my therapist, talking about how I really didn't want to move back in with my parents, but at this point I felt like I had no choice other than that. I spent weeks crying myself to sleep because I didn't want to accept this as my reality. I felt extremely embarrassed because in all the movies, they make fun of the person who's 40 and living in their parents' basement, and I was afraid of how other people would react to this. I felt like people would not see me the same or see me as a failure, but in reality, I just felt like a failure, and I felt embarrassed. I was thinking about the next time we would have a family gathering, or we were around family friends, and I would have to tell them, "Yep, I'm a 23-year-old living with my parents again." And I was just ashamed of myself because this was not the life I pictured for myself. In therapy, I remember her saying, "Did you ever think that you were going to be able to live by yourself?" And I said, "Honestly, no, I didn't." I told her, "I honestly didn't think I was going to make it this far in life. From a young age, I always thought that I would have died before becoming an adult." And she said, "So see, you should be proud of yourself that you were able to make it on your own and live by yourself with your dog, because that was something you never thought was possible and you did it." Just hearing those words, I think something finally clicked in my head. I was proud of myself, and I was proud that I was able to have that experience and be able to live on my own, even if it was only for a short time. That's when everything changed, and it got easier to accept that it was okay that I needed to live with my parents. I was grateful that I got to have the experience of living on my own because it was something I never thought I would be capable of doing. After that, I talked to my parents again about moving back in with them. I told my mom about everything I had been talking about with my therapist, and she said she was proud of me for what I had accomplished in my life, and that she knew losing my independence was hard for me, but to think of the positive things that would come with living with them. She proceeded to list all the positive things and how beneficial it would be for me. That's when I could finally see and picture only positive things. I knew that I would have home-cooked meals every night made for me, and my parents would bring them down to me. Because in their house, they have a flight of stairs that is about 14 steps. So, of course, I'm not able to walk up and down those stairs, so my parents would have to bring me down dinner or carry me upstairs. I thought that I would no longer have to take my dog out to the bathroom 4 times a day. I might have to do it every once in a while, but not every day 4 times a day. I would also have their support and help with anything that I need. At this point, it was the beginning of January, and I knew that my lease would be up in February 1st. So my parents and I decided that when my lease was up, that was when I would move back in with them. And this is kind of funny, but this all happened in literally a week. So after receiving a piece of paper that said it was time to renew your lease, I had called my parents, and that's when we decided that I was not going to renew my lease. The next day, my mom printed out a piece of paper stating that I wasn't going to be renewing my lease, and then I signed it and gave it to my landlord. The next day, my landlord called and said they had gotten a letter and they needed to set a time and date for an apartment inspection. So by this time, it was Wednesday. My parents called me Saturday and said they were going to be cleaning my apartment and packing non-essential items and start bringing it over to my house. Okay, so that was the plan. But you know what actually happened, you may ask? They literally moved everything out of my apartment that day, and by the nighttime, I was all moved in at their house, and I never went back to my apartment. So let's just take things slower, and I'll explain the day. So my mom, dad, and brother came over around 9 o'clock. They started in my living room and were boxing up paintings and loading my futon onto a trailer. So they basically packed up everything in my living room. My mom then proceeds to go to my bathroom and start packing things while my brother and my dad start to pack up the non-essential things in my kitchen. Mind you, I was in my bedroom the whole time because I physically can't help with any of that. I remember coming out of my room and seeing everything that was packed and jokingly saying, "Well, you guys cleaned a lot of things. You might as well just start moving everything." And my mom said, "You want us to?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then from then on, they started packing everything up. And by 6 o'clock that night, everything was packed out of my apartment and moved back into my parents' house. So yeah, like I was saying, I had talked to my parents about moving in with them when my lease was up on Monday, and then on Saturday, I was out of my apartment and moved in with them, and I haven't looked back since. So I paid my January rent, thinking I would have the rest of the month to live in my apartment and be out by February 1st. But I only stayed in my apartment for about 9 days out of that month because it was the second weekend in July that I had moved out. And yes, I did end up getting some of my rent money back because I didn't stay that full month. From then on, Sunday, I went online and discontinued my electric service and my water and gas service, so that was taken care of. Then Monday, I called Spectrum and turned off my internet and discontinued my account with Spectrum. So by Monday night, everything was taken care of. My mom cleaned my apartment and gave me back the keys. She had asked me if I wanted to go back to my apartment and see it one more time, but I said no, because I just wanted that chapter of my life to be over, and I didn't need to go back to my apartment. So like I mentioned before, that Sunday, when my parents and my brother moved me out, was the last time I was at my apartment. After that, I never went back, and I was okay with that. That chapter in my life was closed, and I could really look forward to a new one. And just recently, I got a check in the mail with some of my rent money back, so I was happy about that. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked. Back to my story. So we were out Monday, and then the next day, Tuesday, I had my regular weekly therapy appointment. And every time she starts the conversation by saying, "How has your week been?" And I told her that my week was good, and that since Saturday, I had moved back in with my parents. And then I told her the same exact story I just told you guys about what had happened within the last week. And then she asked me how I was feeling about everything, and I told her that I was actually really thankful for how fast everything went, and I wouldn't have changed anything about it, because it helped me with not having to sit and stir with the negative thoughts. I didn't have time to really think about anything, and nothing was planned, so by the time I actually sat down and had to explain the situation with my therapist, I had no negative feelings towards it at all, and I had just moved on. I said that on Saturday, I thought my parents were just coming over to move some non-essential items, and they ended up moving me out that day. And that night, I just remember thinking, okay, this is where I live now, and now I will have the help of my parents. Moving back in with my parents has been life-changing for the better, and I am so thankful that I have the parents I have, and that they are so supportive of me and help me face the challenges I have to face due to my PAH. It has been a blessing to live with my parents, and I am extremely thankful for them and the help that they give me. My parents cook me dinner every night, and I always make sure I say thank you and tell them how appreciative I am. They take Bentley out to the bathroom every day, 6+ times a day. I may have to take Bentley out when I get home from work at noon, maybe about once a week when my mom doesn't get a lunch break, but I am more than okay with that. That is a lot better than having to take him out every 4 hours and pray that I don't have a panic attack while I am out taking him to the bathroom. My mom also helps me get ready for work by getting my snacks and a drink that I need during work. So while I am sitting down changing into my work clothes, she is getting my snacks and a drink ready for me and puts them in my oxygen bag. She also then brings me a vest from the downstairs closet that is by the garage so I don't have to walk over there, and that is a big help. I have been really struggling lately with the process of getting ready for work, and that is just because I barely have the energy and I get out of breath so easily. So now, instead of having to wake up, turn off my oxygen, walk to the closet to get my work clothes, walk to another closet to get my vest, change into my work clothes, pack my snacks and a drink for work, take Bentley out to the bathroom, take my inhaler, and do all this while I'm extremely out of breath and having to take several breaks, I no longer have to do that all by myself. I now have the help of my mom, who makes my morning routine so much easier for me. I then come home from work, and my mom brings me down a water with flavoring in it and some lunch to eat before I take a nap. They just help me so much, and no words can truly express how grateful I am for them. My life is still hard, and I struggle every day with my disease, taking things away from me, but it is just nowhere as hard as it would be if I was still living on my own and didn't have the daily help of my parents. So now if anyone asks me why I'm living with my parents, I just say, because I lost the ability to do everyday tasks by myself, and I need the help of my parents. And I don't feel embarrassed or ashamed to admit that. My therapist and I talk every week about how I can't compare myself and my situation to a healthy 23-year-old. I could dwell on the fact that I'm not like other people my age and how I'm not in a relationship. I don't live in an apartment by myself. I don't have a full-time job like a normal person my age would. So yeah, I may be 23, living with my parents, on disability, only working 4 hours a day, needing to take a nap every day after work, needing help with daily tasks, but you know what? They don't have a chronic illness. They don't struggle every day with fatigue and getting severely out of breath over simple tasks. So I can't compare myself to others because our situations are completely different. Of course, it is a lot easier said than done, but I am working on that with my therapist, and that is pretty much everything I needed to say about my thoughts and feelings and my experience with having to move back in with my parents. I have gotten everything out, and I feel so much better. I always say that writing things down helps tremendously with just getting your thoughts out of your head. It helps me with my anxiety, and instead of having racing thoughts, my head is clear. I hope this podcast and me opening up about this experience will help anyone who has a chronic illness know that it is okay to be where you are at in life. Please do not compare your life with the life of someone who is healthy. It is okay that you still live with your parents, and it is okay that you need to help with daily activities. I have to fight every day with anxiety and depression, and I struggle with everyday tasks that most people take for granted. For example, little things like getting up and out of bed and walking to the bathroom are easy for healthy people, and to me, it's a struggle. You are a warrior and you are a survivor, and keep on fighting. With that being said, this PAH warrior is signing off. Bye guys, peace.